Yo, what's up, guys? Today was an awesome conversation with Devon Wright of Lumo. Devon sold his previous business to Yelp and then started an orchard, and then discovered that irrigating his orchard was a big problem. Asked some folks about how they watered their own vineyards and orchards and such, and discovered that there was no compelling solution other than driving around and turning valves on and off. So he invented Lumo, and we get into how it's like living in Occidental, which is about an hour, 2 hours north of San Francisco, how he got into the business, and thoughts on social media, and how he's building this company. It's an awesome conversation, super enjoyed it, and we know that you guys will too. Okay, so you're now in the irrigation business. What'd you do before? Like, were you a water engineer?
No, I didn't have any experience in water or in agriculture. I guess that's kind of like how I am. I don't think you need much experience to dive into something. I never really thought about that as, needed a bunch of credentials to justify going and doing something.
Totally.
I look at a problem where I see an opportunity and I just think like, well, that's interesting. Well, I'm going to go research that, see if it stays interesting. And if after a few months it's still interesting, I put a little more energy into it. And if it keeps staying interesting, a year later, you all of a sudden have like learned a lot, and you have a good sign to yourself that maybe this is something you want to stick with. So that's kind of what happened with this business. I'd moved out to California in 2017 when I sold my first company to Yelp. And I was from Canada, so we have so much water up there. I didn't even think water shortages were a real thing anywhere near me, anywhere in like the North America. And then I moved to California, and it was like peak drought.
Yeah.
It was just like, geez, this is crazy. Like, just such a different world when water's a consideration and it's short. And I'd moved out to this little town, Occidental, and it was, it's groundwater fed. Everything in this town's groundwater fed. We have a big ag scene, and they use a lot of groundwater and Russian River water to irrigate all the crops up here. And, being in a community that had like real water shortages, like where people's water was running out and where they had to like truck water in just to kind of keep the toilets flushing, it was a big eye opener of like, man, this is crazy. It's supposed to be like one of the most developed parts of the world, and we're still suffering from, water shortage. And when you live in an agricultural community, that's even more of a thing.
Yeah.
It's even more eye-opening because, I try and grow, I have an orchard, and trying to grow your own food and just having, you just take this really like, there's a big sense of urgency to like, how do I get control of my water? How do I make sure I'm only using the amount that I want? How do I catch like leaks or breaks or things that could cost me, big tanks of water? And having a technology background, I was like, I knew there was ways to do it. I knew there's like the IoT and hardware, that was helping my thermostat stay smart. It's helping my food disposal stay smart. Like, how are those technologies not been applied to irrigation, which is like the biggest user of fresh water in the world by a long shot?
Yeah.
So that I kept looking. I kept assuming, man, there must be something out there. I'm just a small fry. The farmers must have something better than I, know of. And so I just kind of drove around to my neighbors' houses and their vineyards and stuff. And I was like, what do you do? How do you control water? How do you monitor your systems? And they're like, we don't. We just drive around on ATVs and turn it on and off. Like that. We've tried the stuff in the market, and they just seem too complicated or too expensive or not reliable enough. And so I was like, oh shit, that's a real opportunity. Let me see what I can do. And yeah, it's kind of, like I said, take it from there, turn it into a business.
That's interesting. So like what they would do is they would just like drive around, turn on the spigots, and like that's it, basically, on a cyclical thing. And is that what the prevailing solution was?
Yeah, I'd say that's the biggest competitor for us. It's manual, doing it manually. Set an alarm on your phone, drive around, open a valve for 6 hours, come back 6 hours later, turn it off. walk up and down the lines to see if there's any broken lines,
Gotcha.
pretty labor intensive.
Yeah. So so you had the orchard first,
Yeah.
or okay,
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
it. And so you had the orchard, and you were like, this seems like a pain in the ass to like keep this properly hydrated. Certainly, people have to be doing something like more innovative than just like walking around. And you were like, no, they're not. That's funny.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And like, it wasn't just the, annoying part of turning on and off things. It's like the cost of not doing it properly, right? Like if you forget to turn off the valve, or even if you did turn off the valve, but you didn't know you had a broken line somewhere down the field. I mean, we're talking large plots of land too, right? We're talking like 100 acres. How do you visually inspect 100 acres to know if you've got broken lines in places? Like even my little orchard's only about a half an acre. There's, the way the topography is, and the way the lines are spread out. I mean, I've had the situation where I drove my tractor around, I was mowing and I accidentally caught a line I didn't see. I broke the riser off. I go up to my house. I come back down. I turn on the water thinking, yeah, good. I'll be back out 2 hours. And I come back in 2 hours and my tank's are empty. And I'm like, what the hell's going on? How did I use that much water? And then I'd walk around and I find a broken riser, and it was in the grass. So I didn't see it. It was, draining my whole tank into the river. Like my crops are suffering, but I also just lost, 500 gallons of water. Like 500 gallons of water is a lot of water, man. That's like,
Yes.
when that's the same water you use to flush your toilets and to, wash your body, like, and drink. And you only have so much in the ground, and that your neighbors are running out. You're like, yo, that is not that. I don't want to lose 500 gallons. And I'm small fry, man. Like if you run a commercial operation, you could be pumping 1,000 gallons a minute, like, so if you have a broken line and you don't know about, that can be real catastrophic. So that's the thing I think a lot of people don't really appreciate. It's just the volume of water being used in ag, and, the cost of a mistake, not just like financially, right? Like the water loss, the crop damage, the, pump that could get damaged by pumping an empty tank and so on. It just hit me up like, geez, this is a real urgent problem. And because I don't think a lot of people are so aware in the tech community, I don't think they've thought really to put their back into it, right?
So what was the business you had before this? You sold the business to Yelp. And so
that was my first, technical company, I guess. I've always been kind of selling stuff, but my first like formal company out of school. And yeah, it was like a local marketing platform. It was like a CRM almost, or a marketing automation tool. And we originally built it for our band. We were trying to find a better way to connect with people in physical venues. And this is like 2012, there was like social media was exploding and a lot of mobile apps were being built. Everyone was obsessed with like, how do we do stuff on the phone? How do we connect people online? And we were just feeling like, how do you connect people in the real world? That's still a real problem. Like if you're, majority of businesses are actually brick and mortar. And if you're a band, you especially feel it because like no one's going to download your band app. No one's going to, follow your band page. Your best option is to connect with people at the show, because that's where they've come out. They're out of their way. They've spent money. They're in the room in front of you. How do you build something that would allow those people to connect with you live so that you can then maintain a relationship with them after the fact? So that was the problem we were trying to solve. We ended up solving it through like this little Wi-Fi innovation, and we hacked the router and we built a bunch of technology that would allow people to use their phones to connect on premise. They could sign into the Wi-Fi network, and we would be able to like get information and walk them through kind of an onboarding process, and that would allow them then to end up in our CRM, and then we would be able to see that device anytime it came to one of our shows. So we would kind of bring this router around all of our shows. If someone would come back to the show, we'd have pre-programmed like an alert that would say, hey, thanks for coming. We saw you last week. It's so cool that you're here again. Like, now here's a free beer on the band, being a loyal fan, things like that. It was just kind of like a fun little hacky thing at the time.
So sick. And so like, I mean, basically you guys would just bring this router and then like the people, they would just connect to this Wi-Fi.
Yeah, because you'd auto reconnect, right? If you've ever connected the first time, you'd auto reconnect, and then the CRM's job was to use that data to like figure out what were the right messages to say to you. You know, if it was the 10th time you've been reconnected, like that's a really good fan, right? So then you would say something different than if it was the first time someone reconnected or first time someone ever connected, then you'd say, "Oh, thanks, we've never seen you before. Like, thanks for being here." So it was meant to be like, we called it like cookies for the real world. It was like, it was meant to connect people in physical locations to the physical location or to the, you know, band or brands that were on premise. And it was fun. It actually got some legs.
That's cool.
But yeah, I mean, now you talk about it and it sounds so funny because I don't even know if you'd be able to do that. They've done so much with like MAC addresses and privacy. I don't even know if that'd be possible anymore, but it was back then. It was pretty fun. And then, yeah.
That sounds like, that sounds dope. Like I could, so like, would you guys, like when you guys got on stage, be like, all right, connect to this Wi-Fi?
Yeah.
Okay, that's sick. Like,
man, I still think there's like a play there. I mean, I had to move on. You know, it's like I've done that for like 10 years, or I don't know how long it was. It was like 5 years of building it, and then we sold it, and then there was a few years of doing it at Yelp, and then we pivoted it into being more of like a marketing platform on Yelp. You know, but still, I had to get up. I had to just like, I'd done it for too long. But I still think that, you know, we're way too obsessed with how our phones and how our social media connect us to other people online. And there's not really a killer app for how do you connect with people in a physical venue. Like how do you walk into a bar and like, you know, the bar has so much rich content. There's like all these people there that maybe you know or don't know, or maybe you know someone they know. And like, you want to meet people at a place. How do you like figure out who's in the room? How do you get like leads on who to connect with? There's brands in that venue too, right? Like there's, you know, alcohol beverages, there's food brands that are interested in connecting with people on premise. There's often live music or there's other bands. You know, it's crazy. You can go around the web and there's so much like tracking and connectivity being used to target you. And like, it almost has gone way too far, right? Like you're like you're such a product on the web now. And yet like when you walk into a venue, there's just nothing like that. You're like still just kind of, your phone is just silent and you just keep it in your pocket. And the only time you pull it out is to remove yourself from the venue, right? It's to like, is to go on Instagram while you're sitting in this fucking venue. Like, and like what's, you know, there's something missing, right? The phone should be, there's some app, there's something there. I don't know what it is yet, but
no, you're so right. So I used to live overseas, and one of my buddies who's like super into like, I don't know if you remember Foursquare.
Yeah.
Like he'd be like into like, I'm the fucking mayor of this such and such place. I'm like, what do you get? Do you get anything cool? Like, are they giving you extra money or like beer or something? He's like, no, I'm just the mayor. I'm like, well, who sees it? He's like, other Foursquare users. I'm like, do you know who these people are? Have you ever met them? He's like, no. I'm like, what the fuck? So there has to be something like more dope and like connected than that like the brand, like you can create loyalty programs. There's so much there for sure. Like you can meet people.
Yeah, I've done stuff to like see, like to kind of manually Turk this. So like I went into, for a while I would go just up to a random table and I would say, open your Facebook. And they'd be like, who the hell are you? I'd be like, just fucking trust me. Just open your Facebook. So they would open their Facebook. I'd be like, type my name, and they would type it in.
Yeah.
And then it'd be like 6 mutual friends. And I'd be like, click on that. And then it'd like pull up the 6 mutual friends. And they'd be like, oh, you know, fucking blah, blah, blah. And then bam, like the table's unlocked and you're like talking to these people. And now you're friend. Now you're like getting along at the thing. And you know something about each other. Or you could do the same thing with interests, right? Like pull up your favorite interests. Boom. Oh, you love the Leafs too? Like, oh, I'm a huge Leafs fan. Oh yeah, you see the game last night? Like right away. I've done this so many times and it works pretty much every friggin' time. And it, you know, I recognize there's like a creepiness factor and you need to be able to filter it, but these are solvable problems. There's so much rich like information that you can use to connect to people. I've done this with airdrops too. Like I'll like take a picture of my face holding a beer and just write like, if you find me at the bar, I'll buy you a beer. And I would just like airdrop it to anyone who's in the venue that has airdrop open. And like so many times I have had amazing nights, like where people will just come up and be like, "Are you the guy who just airdropped this?" I'm like, "Yeah, here's your free beer. Like, let's start hanging out." And then like we would be laughing, and then someone beside would be like, "Dude, what are you guys laughing at? Do you guys know each other?" I'm like, "No, we just like airdrop this thing." And then he'd be like, "That's hilarious." That he'd be having a beer, and like we've done like some cool stuff like that. And I'm like, "There's a fucking app for this. I don't know who's gonna make it. I'm too old to make it now, man. But someone needs to make it."
That's dope. Okay. Yeah, I've never done shit like that.
Just try it. You'll be so blown away.
I will go to the bar this weekend and I will fucking try
it.
That sounds super fun.
It is. In worst case, it's just it's just like your night fun because you're just ripping around like hacking shit. It's really fun.
Do you like, what other shit have you tried sort of like in the physical space like that? Because I love those two examples. Airdropping shit and then just going up to like a random table and being like, what are our mutual connections? Do you have anything else?
Actually, maybe one other cool thing we used to do as a band. I have this friend named Adrian Wynn. He's the craziest guy, but he's the guy who like he'll try anything. He doesn't. He has no embarrassment. He just like he loves figuring out how people tick, and he would do this thing too where he would try to basically when we were playing shows, he'd like watch the dance floor and he'd kind of watch how the dance floor filled up, and like it's like anything, like the first while of a show, like no one's really on the dance floor because no one wants to be first, no one's there yet, so that,
Right.
just everyone's kind of standing on the sideline, and then he would do things like rewards for the first person to dance. So like if the first person who would get on the dance floor do this, he would just like grab the mic, like, "That person, you're the first dancer, like here's your free beers." Like anytime anyone's the first dancer at our show, they get free beers, and like it would immediately unlock the floor, like, and everyone would join, like trying to see if there was a new prize for them, and then it actually became like a thing, like where people would know, like if I get there and I'm dancing first, I get some stuff, and then that would like make the dance party happen earlier, and that would bring more energy. So there was some fun stuff like that. He was the wizard with stuff like that. He called it fan garden. It's like trying to grow the fan. He was pretty good too. And he ended up building an app that was trying to do some of this stuff, and it didn't make it, but
it's complicated.
There's a way.
Yeah, there has to be a way, and it has to be better than fucking like I'm the mayor of this place, because I'm like, what's the point of that shit?
Yeah, there's no outcome, right? Like it's just vanity. It's not going to last for long. But it goes to show you there's a group of people like even that small gamification is enough of a motivator that it gives you an insight. Like people are willing to do this sort of thing. It's like how do you make it valuable for people? How do you create a system of record from it that becomes valuable to that person, either for their own ego or for their network or for their relationships to the brands they love? How do you unlock something so that they want to keep doing it, and so that more of the network gets involved? I don't know yet, but there's something there, because I think especially like social media has become so toxic. And if you talk to any parent who's got like a 10-year or older kid, I read a stat the other day that it's like more than 50% of girls between 10 and 15 spend up to 7 hours a day on social media. Like it's like your life is gone at that point. Your life is gone, right? If you're spending 7 hours a day on social media, you have a severe addiction, and your life is going to suffer. You are now being pulled away from meaningful human interaction that is necessary for your mental health. And so like we've gotten way too good at connecting people online, and it's at the cost of their ability to connect offline and in the real world and with more meaningful connections. I think we've gone so far in that direction that there is going to be a really strong demand for some in-person or real-world social media application that can use a lot of the same tools that were used to make social media so successful and fun and whatever that kept people coming back, but probably with some guardrails and definitely like with the intent of bringing people together in the real world, because we are like at a huge community deficit, right? And it's causing a major mental health crisis. So technologists have to think about how to do something to bring people back to the real world, or else it's just going to get legislated.
Dude, it's too easy to get fucking stuck on the Instagram scroll or
scroll.
you can't even have that shit on your phone.
No, I delete them all. I don't
Yes.
have any of them anymore because I in 2016, I don't know what it was, took a turn, and it was like Facebook became so unbelievably hard to be a part of, just toxic. And then
Politics.
Instagram was like pretty cool for a while. But then, yeah, like I just kept catching myself like 30 minutes later. I'd go to my phone to like do something else. And then I'd be like sitting there 10, 20 minutes later, just click, click, click. What am I doing? Right. Like, and those moments of like boredom that you're used to have and you used to use for like contemplating the universe or
Yes.
recognizing that cats are cool or like petting your animal or like, talking to your spouse, we're just sitting there doing this. Like it's going to be, I don't think we've seen even the tip of the iceberg on what this is going to do to mental health. I think we have a long way to go.
Yeah. So like, what are some of your like personal habits in terms of technology use? Because you seem very like strongly opinionated on it.
Yeah, like so no social media, the only thing I have is LinkedIn. And by the way, they are getting quite good at getting you to just scroll too. Like I do catch myself in there. I'm like, but for me with LinkedIn, I personally use it because it's like my business, right? And it's my business network. And I work through it. I've found really great relationships through it. The content I put on it has helped me attract employees. It's helped me attract investment. It's helped me connect with other founders. So as much as I do find it pulls me in, it pulls me in during the 8 hours of day that I'm working anyway. So it's like, to me, it kind of makes sense. And for some people that, Instagram makes sense because that's their business too. Right. But, I deleted I never had TikTok. I just got too old to have that. So that's probably not a choice as much as I just like, that's for the generation below me, I think. Instagram I've deleted, Twitter I've deleted, although Twitter I've been using more and more as just like a news source, try to do that. Facebook I've deleted. I work in the Valley. I've seen how good they are at their job. They will get your attention. They're spending billions and billions and billions of dollars with the smartest PMs and the smartest engineers in the world, focused on how to get you to keep picking that thing up and keep scrolling. And they have no intention of it being educational for you. They have no intention of it being, healthy for you to connect with they're not sitting there being like, oh, my North Star is how many times did you call your mom this week? Or, oh, my North Star is how many times did you play chess and learn something this week? Their North Star is like, how many minutes did you use on this thing? And then the questions of like, was it used yelling at people over politics or virtue signaling or, being angry? They don't care. They do not care at all. They have no interest in that. And so when you see that, you're like, you have to be insane to think you are going to outsmart them and that you are going to be able to win your time back. You have to be actually clinically insane. This is like being up against NASA trying to like, with no resources, trying to beat them to the moon. You're just never, ever going to do it. So I just felt super outgunned. Yeah. I felt them taking more time, and I was like, I just want that time back. I want to write a book. I want to, play with my cats. I want to, plant my orchard. I can be sitting around doing this all day. So I had to get rid of those. And then notifications. One of their main ways, one of them, any app's ways to get you is the notifications at the bubbles. Oh shit, one extra like. Oh, I better get back in there. So I turn off all notifications on my phone as well. And by the way, I still get in there. You still are trained. Oh, I got to open up and see if I have an email. You still do it, but at least you aren't being pinged into it all the time. So that's another thing. But other than that, those are kind of the two major ones. I also try to like push the apps. Like I have a lot of pages on my like home screen, so I have to like scroll to get to like apps that are less, so the things I need, I put on the first page, and the things I just like want to be less and less in my life, I push further to the right so that I have to like work to get to them. I do things like that.
Totally.
What about you?
No, I'm 100% the same. I try to check all the social media shit only once a week, like on the weekends, because it's a nice way to stay in touch with friends and family and shit like that. I feel like Twitter and LinkedIn are useful for business, but then it's funny. Like I always think I look at some of the shit that people say on Twitter, and I'm just like, aren't you embarrassed with this point of view? Like, it seems absurd. And it's hard. It's hard because I'm like, shouldn't we be promoting shit and shouldn't I have a point of view on this and that? And I'm like, dude, this is... If somebody walked up to me in a bar and was like, why doesn't anybody do... Why? This seems so useful. And then people reply and they're like, yeah, that's great. I love that thing. I'll just be like, what a ridiculous conversation. And that's like what Twitter seems like to me. So it's hard for me to buy into it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Twitter and LinkedIn are probably pretty useful. I haven't been like following what has happened to Twitter after the like Elon Musk purchase. I imagine it's probably good. You know, who the fuck knows?
Seems similar. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe that was the point. I don't think we were meant to see a huge change. He fired 70% of his engineers and didn't have any change. So maybe that's a testament to.
Totally. I mean, that's kind of this Silicon Valley fucked up over hiring.
Do you use much Substack? I'm a massive Substack user. That's my go-to now. I use that more than anything on my phone for sure. I'm hoping it doesn't become like somehow toxic because it feels like it's in a really nice place. I use it and I use the like it reads to you if you need it to read to you. So I use it when I'm driving. They're winning more and more and more of my time. I really like it.
There's this one dude that I really like. I actually, like a long time ago, I remember like I used to date his sister and I went over their house for Thanksgiving and this dude like fucking smacked me down in a debate. I mean, he was like a couple of years older, so maybe my brain hadn't formed yet, but I was like, holy fuck, this guy is so goddamn smart. And lo and behold, he's like a super popular Substack now. So I like reading his. And
what's his name?
Michael,
what's his
Solana.
Michael Solana.
Yeah.
Check him out.
Our wires. Very fucking good. He's got like these like just very interesting takes, like non-obvious takes on things. Everything from like the whole Titan submarine fiasco to, you know, I don't know, things in politics. It's super interesting. I like his shit a lot.
Michael Solana Substack. There he is. A billionaire media tycoon and mayor of San Francisco.
That's not, I mean, that's just the fucking troll.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, I didn't know. Maybe I thought maybe he wasn't me a billionaire tycoon, but then he said he was the mayor of San Francisco, which I know wasn't true. So it's like, yeah, he got me.
Yes, yeah, he's a smart dude.
And then check him out.
Yeah, there are a couple other Substacks that I like, but his is the one that I like the most. And I feel like, I don't know, if you have smart friends, generally they tell you about like what's going on. Like you don't need to like read the news. You just like are hanging out at dinner and they're like, have you heard that there might be a coup in Russia? And you're like, what? And like you go and you read the New York Times, you're like, I see, this is kind of crazy. Other than that, yeah, I don't know. I like jujitsu, so sometimes I'll catch myself like scrolling like YouTube videos on like training videos, and then I can lose like 20 minutes that way. But I generally can avoid like, you know, like just the stupid vapid like motivational stuff, which I have gotten sucked into before. Like if you've had a TikTok, you know, it's like some jack dude working out and you're like, okay, cool, next one.
Yeah. I have to check them out. I really haven't. I've never even used TikTok, so I'm way behind here.
Save yourself, dude.
Okay, I won't try.
Yeah. There is like sometimes though, like, so I have a small garden. Like I'm sure it's like nothing like yours, but it's like there is some stuff like topical stuff if you're interested in like obscure subject matter. It is very good at funneling you into an interest zone.
Yeah.
Like you know. Yeah. I mean, for example, this seems silly, but I learned like you have to clean like your dishwasher filter like quite often, like often than you'd expect, more often than you'd expect, thanks to TikTok. Now I'm like, dude, I didn't even know this was a thing.
Like, I've never done that. So am I like going to die?
Nah, you're going to be grossed out though. I'll tell you that. You're going to go, fuck.
Oh, man. Uh-oh.
Yeah, it's real easy. It's not hard. It's just not a thing that you think about.
Yeah, it's totally. Unless it gets clogged, I never go in there. And then when it has gotten clogged, I was like, oh
yeah, dude.
Well, but I just assumed that was like the one-off time. But I guess that's just what happens, over time.
Yeah, totally. Well, because like I don't know if you like probably previous to your current property, I don't know if you may have rented before. I mean,
yeah, I did. Yeah,
you're moving in. The landlord maybe took care of it, maybe didn't, and you move before it becomes an issue. But if you're in place for like 2 years, 3 years, year 2, you need to clean that shit.
Yeah, I know what I'm doing at the end of this podcast now. I'm going to get...
What Substacks do you like, by the way? I got to get a couple new ones.
Man, see, this is one of my biggest fears is people are very judgmental nowadays, you know, like, and it's tough to, I actually have my Substack as an anonymous account because I don't share what I've been after because especially here in the Bay Area, people are not very tolerant of views outside of their own views. And I actually share many of the views out here, by the way. I'm not like I don't want to come across like, oh my gosh, this guy must be like reading like Ku Klux Klan articles. Like I'm from Canada. I very much have the Canadian progressive liberal values in my life. But the value that I have most is like tolerance for other people, even people that I significantly disagree with.
Yeah.
And that's not okay here. In fact, I don't even know, that might be all of America right now. There's like very little tolerance for people that don't think the same way as you, right? No one's really interested in a debate. They just want to like decide whether you're in their tribe or not pretty much as soon as they meet you. And then they either like you for that or not. So I don't share what I read. Even if I think you and me are aligned, even if I think your audience would be like, yeah, I'm with that. I won't do it because it's guaranteed that like you just immediately are put into a tribe and then people want to fight. And I'm like, what? And not just fight with you for like the reason of like debate and coming to a common conclusion or learning about someone else's life. It's like they want to tell you you're an idiot and that you need to change. And if you won't, then they hate you. So there's like actual real costs nowadays to like sharing what you like and don't like. And if the wrong, person comes across it and you were hoping to, do business with them or work with them, it can be weird. Not that you'd want to after you found out that they hate you for something that you think, but still, you just never know. And it actually causes more friction. So unfortunately, I'm not gonna share them. I'll share them with you after. You and me could chat after, but yeah, I don't put it out there.
I'll stop recording, but I'll ask you again. So,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What's interesting is like actually just today. So we send like a weekly newsletter, like every Friday. Some dude straight up just replied to my newsletter email with like, fuck you, Teja. Like that was the reply. And so it's like a thing because when you're sending emails and like somebody's like, didn't I fucking unsubscribe to this shit? Fuck you, you guys suck ass, that type of shit. Like people get really upset. And so I used to not be on this podcast. This was actually run by like a previous head of marketing, the podcast and the newsletter. And I've just kind of been stepping in as we look to like hire like a new VP for the role and scale that team.
Yeah.
And the first couple of times I've been on the podcast and writing the newsletter, I've been like really careful about like not having a point of view that's offensive and like not swearing and like not saying potentially offensive.
Swearing, I can't help. And you're the same way, I guess.
I can't now, dude. I grew up in New York, so it's just, this is what it is. And so, but over time, it might have cost us some dollars, but I actually kind of feel like owning like my own beliefs, this is for me. It actually, like for people that like genuinely know me, it actually increases like their trust of me because they know like I'm the same person in every domain. And like, like people that I work with closely in the company, like know that I have some sort of like, let's say I have a certain belief and it may not be the typical tech CEO belief, and that's okay. You know what I mean? And like they're either cool with it and they like to work with me, or they're not cool with it and they're strong enough on that stance where they're like, fuck this guy, I don't want to work with him. Why even operate a company if you're not going to make it like a reflection of like things that you believe in? That's my point of view. So I don't know. Who knows? I might get fucking stoned to death in San Francisco though. So I don't know.
It's a lot of places, man, and like you're seeing it more and more. I mean, look, COVID was such a good example of that. I mean,
100%.
Like, there was no conversation about what things we should and shouldn't do. It was just like the people on the TV said this is how we do it, and I have no data to back that up, and I don't want to have a debate about it. You either believe that or you don't. Like we either keep kids out of school because that's what the big guy said to do, or you're the Nazis. And you're like, what? Like, no, like, I think there's just a real conversation about like, should kids not be allowed to see each other for years?
100%.
I think that's a worthwhile debate. Like, and also like, we should just look like are they at like major risk? Like, let's just have the conversation. Let's just bring up the data. And it was like, no, either you want to go to war, and I'm just not in the phase of my life where like I need to be going to war all the time over shit. I want to I want to save water. I want to focus on that. And so the more you share and talk about these other things, the more you get dragged into it. And then you're just either like being libeled, and then you have to respond because you want to protect your reputation, and now you're sucked in, or 100%. you don't get involved at all, or you don't say anything about it, and then you just get libeled. So it's like, I don't know. It seems like it's not worth it. I don't know. I don't have the profile that's good enough to actually make an impact on people anyway. And so it's like, whatever.
I get you, especially like when you have a team, you have investment, you have customers. It's like you have like a duty, like a fiduciary duty to like execute for them and like make sure to stay focused on that. And it's real easy to like piss away your emotional energy.
Well, and you have channels to communicate to them directly. Like believe me, I share what I believe in my values on my Slack. I share it to my team. I share it during my hiring. I tell them everything, but I don't need to share it on, in front of a million other people, because I don't care about those. Like, I don't know those people. I'm going to certainly not change almost any of their minds, but I am certainly going to enrage a lot of them. And then and then what? So there's all this cost downside, and then there's like no upside. And then you're like, well, if I care about informing my team, I'm just going to use a different channel. If I care about talking to my customers, I mean, I literally have every single one of their phone numbers to just reach out, right? I don't need to. Yeah. So that's why I just try to be careful, because unfortunately, it feels like that's what I was saying in 2016. It feels like it all changed, man. It all changed, because before that, it felt like there was a lot more openness to have debate and conversation. And then all of a sudden, it's just like, yeah, no, that's not going to happen anymore. So then I stopped sharing online. It didn't make any sense for me.
You don't have to do this, but I challenge you at some point, good sir, to start dripping out some of your controversial opinions.
Yeah.
See what happens.
No, it's a good challenge.
Hard, but I don't know. Half the time though, I think Chris and Abby, they're like rated in Teja. You can't say that.
Fair enough. Rated it.
Okay, so how far is Occidental from San Francisco, by the way? It's like an hour, 2 hours?
Like if you were driving on a good day, hour and a half. If you were driving on a very busy traffic time, it could be over 2 hours.
So when did you guys move out there to Occidental? A couple of years ago?
2019. Before COVID.
Oh, damn. Okay.
Yeah. So before it was cool.
Yeah, I know. So you missed basically like the lockdowns and all that shit, like
yeah, I was already living up here. It's a town of 1,000 people, unincorporated little rural community. So not to say there wasn't like, restrictions. There was, but it certainly hurt some of our local businesses.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah, my kid was super young, so she was 0, just born. And we live up, in this like piece of land out in the middle of friggin' nowhere. So honestly, it was just kind of like we were up here for a weekend thinking it was just going to be 2 weeks to flatten the curve. And then like 2,000 days later, we were like, had 2 kids and we had all these animals and shit. And we saw on the news like what was happening, but we were already like pretty isolated. So we would just like invite friends over and drink wine. And then our town was pretty cool. They opened up pretty early, and like some great restaurants and stuff kind of kept rolling and gave us some stuff to do. But yeah, we were pretty much out of it.
So what is like rural California feel like? Does it feel like what I imagine, like LA? I mean, I've been to like SoCal, like Orange County, never been to LA, and I've been to San Francisco a couple of times, and it has a certain feel to it. That's, I don't know, almost like, depending on where you go, if you're going out at night, the city feels like crazy and incredible. But if you like walk around in certain parts of San Francisco in the day, you're kind of like, this is kind of sketchy.
Yeah.
I mean, do you feel any of that in Occidental, or is it like a totally rural town?
No. Yeah, we're really far away. Like California, I think I'm not Americans, and I've only lived in so many places. It's hard to generalize, but from my experience, this is the strength of America. This is why I really love it, being here. The diversity of people is and of views and of ways of living is dramatic, just from like county to county.
Yeah.
Like the county north of me is so different than this county, is so different than Napa, is so different than the San Francisco, and then so different than Marin. And you don't need to go far to have like to get an entirely different experience, an entirely different, philosophy and viewpoint. That fragmentation is really cool. It's been, like we said, it's turning to be unfortunate online that kind of fragmentation's been taken advantage of to create anger and clicks. But in the real world, it actually is quite a strength because, it can be, you can go, if you don't like San Francisco, you can move 1.5 hours north and you can have an entirely different experience. So my county, to use a generalization, is like, it feels very hippie. It's like, and it was that way but the old hippies, not today's hippies, the old hippies that were like, anti-government, not the hippies that are like, today's hippies. I'm also just making a joke because they're not, it's not anti-government. It's like, this is where the communes were born, like back from the 50s and 60s. This is where magic mushrooms kind of came, Terrence McKenna and others lived here for a long time. Some of the Grateful Dead played here. Some guys from some very iconic bands have moved and lived in Occidental. There's a good music scene out this way. So, and then there's the wine community and the wine country. So it's a cool blend of like some hippie sentiments and mentality mixed with some of that money that's come from the Bay, mixed with some of the music and art scene that's kind of been, big in and around the Marin and Sonoma counties for a long time, mixed with the wine community and the rural attitude. So it's a cool little blend of a bunch of different topics. And then because it's not a big city, I'm 1,000 people, Sebastopol's maybe 10,000, 20,000 people. I don't know, something like that. Nothing. Healdsburg's this beautiful little town with a lot of wealth, but it's, again, not very large. So we don't, fortunately, I guess we're just not big enough to like deal with a lot of the things that occur in a large city like San Francisco or in LA.
Yeah, totally.
So, but it's totally different. And I love that about America. I mean, you just drive from county to county, you just get a totally different vibe. And I'm just talking about a tiny little region. You drive to the Central Valley, it's totally different vibe. You drive into LA, totally different vibe. Orange County, totally different vibe. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's dope. That's cool, man. Okay, so where in Canada are you from? I should have asked that earlier, but
just outside of Toronto.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
This little town called Whitby.
Okay. Did you grow up like in a city or were you like small town?
It was like a mid-sized suburb town. It was right on the edge of like the rural part of where the rural part of that area begins, and then Toronto. So it was sandwiched right in between. And in many ways, like that was how I was able to live. Like I definitely didn't go to the city much as a kid, but it influenced us a lot. And then also you could drive 40 minutes in one direction and be in the middle of nowhere on your friend's dad's farm and like having beers out there. So it was cool. It was a cool part of the country.
Totally. The one observation that I've made is like the tech industry attracts like people that are very independence minded and like individualistic, but then to kind of like succeed in parts of the tech world, you kind of have to join like the hive mind. And then I think people get to a certain point where they're like, fuck this. I don't want to be a part of this. And then they migrate to like, I don't know, Northern California, or they
Tennessee, Austin.
Yeah, 100%. And it's like this loop where I could see like, you get a guy or a girl who goes and works at Facebook for like 2 years and is like, this actually sucks, leaves, and then moves to like, I don't know, fucking Jackson or something. But I guess Jackson's also now like super
there's an archetype for that for sure. But I know lots of people that stay and they
really
they stick it out and definitely COVID changed a lot. Like that when people could work remote, I think I think this must have happened in most cities, but certainly happened a lot in San Francisco. Just I could speak to it because I was there, but a lot of people were like, why would I pay so much money to live in downtown San Francisco? It's not really that much going on. When most of my time I go hiking in Tahoe anyway. I'll just go live in Tahoe, or most of my time I go surfing down in Santa Cruz anyway. I'll just go live there. Or like, I love Austin. I love the vibe out there. And like, why would I, I just want to try my hand at that. So that definitely created a migration for sure. And we see it up here even, a number of young families have moved up this way and basically just said, like get way more for my money. I get a bunch of land, nicer weather. A wine country's right next door. I'm always in wine country anyway, so why wouldn't I? I might as well pay half the rent and get 20, 30 minutes less drive. Or I don't know the rationale, but I think you saw that.
Totally. So, okay. So with Lumo, are most of your customers kind of like vineyards, or do you guys?
Yeah, we focus a lot on vineyards. That's like our biggest area of focus. I think we're applicable to pretty much any drip irrigating crop at this time, but we like focus.
Cool.
It makes you better for your customers when you know them better,
Cool. Yeah. How do you build like an irrigation technology company? What's the team composition like?
If I knew, man, I'd already be, a unicorn, but, doing my best.
Hey, you're on your way. I mean, you got the passion for it. So it's just, a matter of time.
Yeah. I mean, the way I try to do it is just try to go be an irrigator, man. Like literally I went and worked as an irrigator, like you'll know what problems they have by doing the job. And by spending a lot of time with customers that do the job and just asking them a lot of questions, looking at their competitors and how they're using them and not using them. And I think that's like my number one kind of philosophy is just like customers first. Go see the customers, go live in their shoes. Then you'll come out of it with a lot of you'll come out of it with one or two really big ideas about what needs to change. And then you'll also learn their language, which helps with your marketing. You'll learn their network, which helps with your sales. So that's what I did. I just decided fuck it, I'm going to go be an irrigator.
That's sick.
And I still kind of do that. Now I'm a plumber. I plumb in all of our stuff. And so but again, it's like, I'm trying to learn, how does my product get installed, right? It's not going to get adopted if that installation process is shit. I can never build channel partnerships if I built a product that is only able to be installed or supported by a very specialized group of my team. So getting out there and learning what is the actual physical process to put one of these in? What's the physical process to run one of these? What's the physical process to have an irrigation meeting? Who's at that meeting and how do they talk about what's upcoming and their plans for irrigating and how do they then open my platform and try to use the buttons and the interface to get that job done? Just taking notes and sharing it to the team, making the team come and do the same thing, putting everyone in the field as often as you can.
How do you balance like let's say you go to an irrigation meeting and I assume you have a guy or girl who runs your technology department, and probably the software interface for the thing. And you're oh, okay, I see that they're getting stuck here, they're getting tripped up here. How do you actually give them the notes? Or are you go join the next meeting? How do you try to balance between letting them do their own thing versus you see a problem, you want them to fix it?
That's what the PM's job is to take is to know the customer really well and to know what that customer needs to be successful. And then to set the North Star of what how are you measuring that success? How are you measuring that customer is getting value out of the platform? And then for looking at every request that either they've come up with or you've asked them or they've seen in a meeting or the engineers have identified or customers have emailed, and to try to rank them in terms of their impact on the North Star. And then their job is to decide which ones to build. Not my job. My job is to just desperately try to represent the customer as best I can understand it. And that's often very compelling, and it often does make for things to rise to the top of the order. But I tried to make sure the team doesn't think, oh, that's just the CEO said to do it, I need to go do it. I try to just only bring things from the lens of the customer when it makes sense. And then the PM is going to have me as one input and all these other inputs, and it's up to them.
That's fucking cool. I admire that.
Well, because if you don't do that, my first company, we didn't know how to do that. And we had a lot of churn, a lot of just building so many features and doing so many things because I would be dumb enough to wake up one day and be oh, it'd be really cool. This seems cool. I wasn't doing it thinking oh, now go build it.
Yes.
I didn't do that, but I didn't appreciate that me saying that was going to have this weight. And then people were going to go away and be well, he said we got to do that thing. Let's go build it. And then I'd come back 2 weeks later and it'd be we built this thing. And I'd be, but then the sales team would be pissed because they'd be did you build my thing? That thing that actually is going to drive dollars, it's actually going to drive usage? No, I built the CEO's thing because I heard him say this was important, or this client was calling him, telling him they work with us, had this stupid feature and no signed contract, no commitment. Then the deal doesn't close. And now you've got too many features and too much churn. And so I've tried to like get out of the way of doing that. And I've also tried like really only to do that when my conviction is coming from like a direct experience with paying customer or someone who I know is got a commitment, right?
I have the tendency to like, I'll be on a sales call or something. I'll be like, this guy said this, we need to fucking do it like right now. And then my team is like, are you sure? Like, so I have to kind of watch myself and make sure that there's some good customer data coming behind my opinions on shit.
Yeah, totally.
All right. Well, sweet, man. I want to stop recording and then ask you actually what you like reading. What can people
I can give you good water books. I can give you all sorts of good stuff related to that I'm, that I love.
Actually, yeah. Tell me like, what's a good, if I want to understand like the water problem, or if I want to understand more, like maybe just about like the pain that somebody who's like growing crops and shit feels around getting enough water. Like what's a good starting place?
Water Paradox.
Okay.
Is so good. It is the best book I've read at highlighting how we've built our kind of systems around water, around appropriation, and what needs to change to shift towards like efficiency thinking and being better with the resource we have. Awesome book. Really recommend it. Easy read, well written. And then the other is Let There Be Water by Seth Siegel. And that is just a killer, well-researched story of drip irrigation in Israel and how Israel kind of went from being this place that no one really thought could sustain populations because it's in the desert and didn't have like much water, to being, 5 times bigger than they expected, and to being a net water exporter and a net agricultural exporter. And it speaks specifically to the story of drip irrigation, which I think is just like such an exciting technology and has so much potential to grow and will grow. It uses that story to kind of dive deeper into the Israeli culture and policy and relationship to water that is so healthy and cool. And it's a nice read to follow on after Water Paradox, because it's a good anecdote of people doing it right. People recognizing the need for change and efficiency and making it happen through, culture and technology and lots of fun stuff. So also a very easy and good read. Those are the two for sure. They're great.
Awesome. Where can people find you on the interwebs?
LinkedIn. That's the spot.
Okay. Go to Devon's LinkedIn, everybody. I'm sure he's got some good stuff. And that's the only social platform he uses. So it's probably...
I'm on there all the time. It's the only one that sucks up all my attention.
Oh, yeah. Awesome. Appreciate you, man. Thanks for
having us.
Thanks for listening to the Frontier Podcast powered by Gun.io. We drop 2 episodes per week, so if you like this episode, be sure to subscribe on your platform of choice and come hang out with us again next week and bring all your internet friends. If you have questions or recommendations, just shoot us a Twitter DM at The Frontier Pod, and we'll see you next week.